It was the night before my college graduation. I'm in my dorm room, scrolling through Grubhub for something to eat. I came across this pizza place, Enzo and Bruno's. Never tried it before, but I saw it was highly rated, so I went for it. I figured I'd splurge a little, get a large pepperoni and double it to have plenty of food for the next couple of days. I excitedly tracked the order in the Grubhub app, which said it would arrive in 20 to 30 minutes. I did my usual due diligence, checking if my cat's water and food and litter box were full and set her up for the night. After that, went back to eagerly checking the Grubhub app for the estimated time of arrival of my pizza. 30 minutes had passed by since the Grubhub app had last updated. I shrugged it off and figured it was just running a bit late. 50 minutes after ordering, my stomach began rumbling while I relentlessly refreshed the status on my Grubhub app. "The restaurant is making your food," it said. An hour passed, and now I was getting a little angry. I closed the Grubhub app and decided to call the pizza place. A woman answered, "Hello, Enzo and Bruno's." I gave her my information and she placed me on a brief hold. She returned to the phone. "Sorry, young man, but we don't have a record of any order with your name and number." At this point, I was furious. Not only did this pizza place take my money, but they didn't even make my food. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I made the order over an hour ago." The woman again insisted they had no record of my order. I asked her if she could check again with the manager or something, but she refused. I hung up and immediately opened my Grubhub app. The order was still listed as "the restaurant is making your food." I was tempted to give Grubhub customer service a call, but it was late and I didn't want to deal with that. I finally turned in for bed, hungry and annoyed that I had been hoodwinked out of my money. I woke up the next morning and saw I had an email from Grubhub. My pizza order from the previous night had just been updated. It was ready for pickup. I was confused and angry. What on earth were they talking about? I messaged Grubhub support and told them to cancel the order. I thought no more of it. A few months later, after I had settled into my new apartment after college, I got a phone call from my old college. The woman on the other end of the line was clearly distraught. She explained that the police had made an arrest in the case of Enzo and Bruno's. Students had been ordering food from the place for months, only to have them take the money but never deliver any food. It turns out that the owner was just stealing the Grubhub money for himself. The police had arrested the owner not because of the undelivered pizzas, but because they found disturbing evidence during the execution of a drug warrant. Unbeknownst to the students on campus, they had been getting their pizza crusts from a murderous and sadistic drug lord. The story was horrific. He had employees at the pizza place collect roadkill and grind it into a paste, which was then used in the pizza crust. The newest victims they identified via dental records had last been seen alive on the night I tried to order my pepperoni pizza. Took me a moment to process the whole phone call. I'm not usually the religious type, but I said a prayer for those poor souls, and I never wanted pepperoni pizza again as long as I live. Look, I've always loved late-night deliveries. They're the perfect way to earn extra cash while I study. But this one delivery, Well, let's just say it'll haunt me for a long time. It was 2:50 a.m., and I was cruising down a quiet neighborhood street when the order popped up on my screen. It was for one large pepperoni pizza, easy enough. The delivery address was just a few blocks away, so I figured it would be a quick and simple payout. As I pulled up to the house, something felt off. The windows were dark, and the porch light was flickering. I knocked, but there was no answer. I tried again, louder, but still nothing. Weird, I thought. I reached for my phone to call the customer, but the line was dead. I knocked and shouted, "Hello? Your pizza's here." But there was still no response. Frustrated, I was about to leave when I noticed the curtains in one of the windows twitch slightly. I froze, then approached the window cautiously. There, through the broken blinds, I saw a horrifying sight. A man was sitting hunched over in a chair, his head lolling back. He was clearly dead, and his eyes were wide and staring straight at me. I gasped and stumbled backward, tripping over my own feet. As I lay there on the ground, my heart pounding in my chest, I heard a faint voice. "Please, help me." I scrambled to my feet, terrified. I couldn't see who was speaking, but their voice sounded desperate. I slowly approached the living room window again and looked inside. The room was dark, but I could make out a woman lying on the floor next to the dead man. She was covered in blood, and her eyes were pleading for help. Without a second thought, I called 911 and burst into the house. I grabbed the woman and dragged her to the front door, where paramedics were waiting. I watched in horror as they loaded both her and the dead man into the ambulance and sped away. That was the day I learned that even the most routine deliveries can turn into a nightmare. I didn't get paid for that pizza, but it turns out the true horror was served later. I never found out what happened that night. The couple disappeared, and no one ever came to claim the cold pizza sitting at the police station. In college, I was a loner. It gets a bit depressing reading books in your dorm room every weekend, so I decided to get myself a part-time job as a food delivery guy. I was fine with it, I didn't need much money. One rainy night, I got an order to deliver a family-sized box of pizza to an address in one of the richest neighborhoods in the city. I knew my way around that neighborhood, but it was the first time I was delivering something at such a late hour. The rain was like a wall. I could barely see. I finally found the address. It was an old Victorian house, looking magnificent even from a distance. I rang the bell, nobody answered. I rang it again and again. The door finally opened, but nobody was there. The lights were on, the dining room table was set. I shouted but got no reply, so I stepped in and closed the door behind me. I put the pizza on the table and turned around to leave, but the door was locked. I tried the knob, it wouldn't open. I tried the windows, they wouldn't open either. I went back to the dining room, the food looked untouched. I laughed at myself for being so jumpy. As I was laughing, I saw it. A little girl was standing in the doorway. She had pale skin and long, black hair. She was wearing a white nightgown. She just stood there and stared at me. I assumed the food delivery was a birthday surprise from her mom or dad, and she woke up because she heard someone came in. I took a step closer to her and said, "Is it your birthday?" She just stared at me. "I brought you a pizza. Happy birthday," I said. She backed away, disappeared into the corridor, and didn't come back. The lock on the front door made a click and I was free to go. I rushed to my car and sped off. Looking at my rearview mirror, the old house looked more sinister than ever. And there she was, standing right in the doorway, staring at me as my car disappeared into the rainy night. After that night, I never took a food delivery job at a late hour ever again. The neighborhood, the house, the girl, everything was just too unreal. And yeah, it was definitely scarier than a cold pizza.